Joseph Lyle Menendez and Erik Menendez are two American brothers who were convicted in 1996 for the slaying of their parents. Their father, Jose Menendez, came to the United States from Cuba when he was 16 years old. He lived in the attic of a cousin's home until he earned a college scholarship for swimming. Jose attended Southern Illinois College, where he met Mary Louise Anderson, a beauty pageant queen who everyone called Kitty. They got married in 1963 and moved to New York City, where Jose earned an accounting degree from Queens College. Kitty quit her teaching job after Lyle was born, and they moved to New Jersey, where Erik was born. Both brothers attended Princeton Day School. Jose became an executive of Hertz Global Holdings and later RCA Records. In 1986, the family moved to Beverly Hills, California, when he was appointed as the CEO of Artisan Entertainment that was then known as Live Entertainment. The house where they lived was located on one of the most exclusive blocks in Beverly Hills and was previously occupied by Michael Jackson and Elton John. Lyle was a star tennis player and seemed destined for a career in business like his father. Erik turned out to be even better at tennis, ranking 44th in the United States as a junior. The brothers had no choice but to be successful. Jose was known as a hard-driving father who would work his children to the bone in athletics and everything else. The brothers' former swim coach said, "It seemed like Jose was so competitive. He was doing everything he could to try to make Erik better. But he was so completely overbearing, it had the opposite effect. Erik had so much less self-confidence because everything he did was never good enough." Erik took teenage rebellion to an extreme and took part in a string of burglaries after they moved to California. He avoided jail time but attended court-ordered therapy with Dr. Jerome Oziel. Lyle enrolled in Princeton University but was suspended for a year for plagiarism. On the evening of August 20th, 1989, Jose and Kitty were watching television in the den of their Beverly Hills mansion when Lyle and Erik entered the den, each carrying a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun. Jose was shot 6 times, including a fatal shot in the back of his head. Kitty was shot 10 times in total. Before the fatal shot to her cheek, she was on the ground. Crawling away, Lyle ran to his car to reload before firing the fatal shot to her face. The slaying was brutal. 45-year-old Jose and 47-year-old Kitty were nearly unidentifiable. It was so barbaric that the police thought it was a mob hit. The night of the slaying, the brothers told the police they had gone out that night to see a movie, but had to make a pit stop to retrieve Erik's ID. That is when they discovered their parents' decimated bodies and dialed 911. The officers who responded to the 911 call found Erik, then 18, sobbing on the lawn before entering the crime scene. The police did not test the brothers for gunshot residue, which would have indicated whether they had recently discharged a firearm. In the months that followed the slayings, neither of the Menendez brothers acted like young men who had recently found both of their parents deceased. Instead, they acted like two guys who had just won the lottery. Jose was worth $14 million at the time of his demise, and within 6 months, the brothers spent an estimated $700,000 of his fortune. Lyle, who was 21 at the time of the slayings, purchased a Rolex, a Porsche, lots of clothing, and a restaurant back in Princeton, where he had been living before the slayings. Erik was more practical, opting for a Jeep Wrangler, a $50,000 personal tennis coach, and a $40,000 investment in a rock concert that never happened. They took exotic vacations too, thinking they had even more money coming to them. There was also a $5 million life insurance policy on their father, though technicalities stopped them from collecting it. During the early stages of the investigation, the police tried to narrow their search to suspects who had motives for shooting Jose and Kitty. They also investigated potential mob leads. As the investigation continued, they began to suspect the brothers were the most likely perpetrators due to the obvious financial motive and their exorbitant spending after the slayings. After the slayings, Dr. Oziel reached out to his former patient Erik and began counseling him again. Soon enough, Erik confessed to shooting his parents. Dr. Oziel confided in Judalon Smith, with whom he was having an extramarital affair. She would ultimately play a big part in the case. The therapy sessions continued, and Dr. Oziel ultimately got both Erik and Lyle on tape, confessing to the slayings. Erik said that they had done it to put their mother out of her misery, while Lyle made it clear that they were both in on the crime. Judalon and Dr. Oziel had a rocky relationship. She claimed he was controlling and abusive, and after he allegedly attacked her, she contacted the Beverly police to reveal that the Menendez brothers confessed to their parents' slaying. She even had an audio tape of the confessions. Lyle was arrested on March 8, 1990. Erik, who was in Israel at the time for a tennis tournament, flew to Miami and then Los Angeles, where he turned himself into the police on March 11th. It took 2 full years to figure out if the tapes with the confessions could be used in court, or if it fell under doctor-patient confidentiality, with lawsuits and appeals flying back and forth between the prosecution and the Menendez's lawyers. The Supreme Court of California finally ruled that 2 of the 3 tapes were eligible to be used in the trial, including the one that contained Lyle's admission of guilt. The trials began in 1993, with separate juries for each brother, and were broadcasted on a relatively new cable network called Court TV. The network carried not only the trials, but also endless hours of coverage before and after each day's proceedings. This helped fuel a national obsession with a case that had all the elements of a great primetime soap opera. Inside the courtroom, the prosecutors argued that the Menendez brothers were after their inheritance, but Lyle and Erik said that they did it in self-defense. They said their father did not just emotionally abuse them, he also molested them for years. Lyle from the ages of 6 to 8, and Erik from ages 6 to 18. The claim, filled with graphic descriptions, shocked the nation and split friends and family members. Erik's lawyer, Leslie Abramson, who worked alongside Lyle's lawyer, Gerald Chalef, argued that the 2 were acting in self-defense after growing up in such a violent and traumatizing home. Lyle, who gave graphic testimony of his father's alleged behavior, also said that he had confronted Jose about the abuse and threatened to expose him if he did not stop assaulting Erik. He took his father's angry response as a threat on their lives. The defense also attacked Kitty as a husk of a woman who struggled with alcoholism and substance addiction. The broken wife and useless mother, they said, was devastated by Jose's many affairs. The first trials lasted 6 months, and both resulted in hung juries, who were unable to agree on whether Lyle and Erik were guilty or acting in their own self-defense. Immediately it was announced that they would be retried together. The second trial took place in 1995 and was far less sensational, as Judge Stanley Wiesberg did not allow TV cameras into the courthouse. The judge also ruled that there was insufficient evidence that Jose had abused his sons, which was central to the defense's claim that the brothers had shot their father out of fear. When Lyle was 8 and Erik 6, their cousin, Diane Vander Molen, came to stay with them. Lyle confessed to her that their father was sexually abusing him. Diane claimed to have told Kitty what Lyle had said, but she also claimed that Kitty sided with her husband and said that Lyle was lying. Diane then testified that she believes Lyle was telling the truth about the abuse because he had told her similar things when he was a child. Judulon testified for the defense during the second trial, insisting that Dr. Oziel had manipulated the brothers into confessing. The effort fell short. Both Lyle and Erik were convicted of 2 counts of first-degree slaying on March 21, 1996. They were sentenced to life without parole, each receiving 2 consecutive life terms that July. The brothers have gotten married in prison to women who are not incarcerated. Erik married his pen pal Tammy Sacomon in 1999. She wrote a book about their relationship, They Said We'd Never Make It, My Life with Erik Menendez, in 2005. She has a daughter, Talia. Talia isn't biologically related to Erik, but he helped raise her, and Talia calls Erik her dad. Lyle married Anna Eriksson, a former model who divorced him when she found out he had been writing to other women, and then Rebecca Sneed, a journalist-turned-attorney whom he wed in 2003. Lyle and Erik were sent to separate prisons until 2018, when they were reunited and allowed to serve their sentences at the same facility in San Diego. The brothers counsel other inmates who have suffered abuse, and Erik leads multiple self-help groups. In May 2023, the brothers requested a new hearing by filing documents which are based on newly discovered evidence, which allegedly proves that their father had also molested the Menudo boy band member Roy Rossello. Specifically, on April 18, 2023, on a segment of The Today Show about a television documentary, Roy stated that when he was 14 years old, he was drugged and assaulted by Jose Menendez while he was visiting the Menendez's home in New Jersey. Kitty's older sister, Joan Vander Molen, also backed the abuse allegations in an interview. However, Kitty's brother, Milton Anderson, has described the allegations as bull. They are waiting to hear whether a judge will agree to consider the newfound evidence, including a letter that Erik wrote to his cousin Andy Cano 8 months before the slaying, explaining how he was terrified of his father and feared for his life. The Menendez brothers have exhausted their state and federal appeal options, and a retrial is unlikely. There have been multiple movies, miniseries, and documentaries about the brothers' crime. The latest project about the case is Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story, the second installment of the popular Netflix series. Erik's daughter, Talia Menendez, has been vocal on social media, informing followers of the appeal filed in May 2023. Talia reported on September 30th, 2024, that they might hear back about their appeal decision within 60 days, stating, "There was new evidence proving the abuse endured after decades of not being believed, and it had been excluded from the retrial." She expressed her desire for compassion from the district attorney, urging them to set her father and uncle free after nearly 35 years behind bars. Freedom could be just around the corner for the Menendez brothers.